to be I'm absolutely thrilled to have everyone here this afternoon. Hope you're having an incredible Black History Month. And my name is Vernon Beckford. I'm the co-founder of Emerge Real Estate, which is an online publication devoted to small, emerging, and developing operators. I'm absolutely thrilled, like I already said about this panel, and I'll tell you why. There's namely two reasons. One, this is the launch week for Emerge, and so I encourage all of you to check out this publication, which was literally created for exactly the people in this room so that we can be sharing information amongst each other, so that we can be showcasing the achievements and the accomplishments that I think, frankly, don't get enough attention, and so that we can be in a position to help empower each other to get more access to capital, which remains a perennial issue that we're all solving for. So one, check out emerge-re.com, and you will see all of these beautiful faces on the panel featured in some capacity on that publication, but you'll also get the benefit of hearing their wisdom today. The second reason why I'm so excited is because my day job, which is co-running a shop called Diversified Lending Solutions, where we help arrange financing for small to mid-sized operators, gets a ton of exposure to exactly these folks. And I don't have to tell anyone how many talented, exceptionally creative operators there are, but I don't necessarily think it always gets fully appreciated, the depth of that talent. We hear a lot of stories about affordable housing. We hear a lot of stories about traditional value add multi. I don't think we hear enough stories about what some of the folks in this room are actually doing. So with that all said, you're going to hear it. I won't have to say any more about it, but thank you for sitting here. The format of the conversation is we'll go up until about 1:15, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. Feel free to drop in the chat, but thanks. So happy to have everyone here today. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce the panelists. I'll start with Devon, since you're at the top of my screen. Devon Reeves, the founder of the Vaughn Group, investor. We've actually had a recent conversation. I'm so excited to hear you share what you're doing in the hotel space. Next, Carrington Carter, general partner of East Chop Capital. Truman Tolfree, founder and managing principal of Intersection Realty. Nathaniel Pettiford, founder and managing partner of Legacy Lineage Partners, and Tom Clayton, co-founder of Touchdown Realty. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. So let's launch right in. I mean, I'm interested. I've learned over kind of the course of the year more and more about each of your businesses. Why don't you just, in your own words, describe your business focus, and keep in mind, just through the lens of, for the audience, some of the more alternative focused projects and models you're pursuing. Devon, why don't you jump right in?
Sure, I love it. You're letting the ladies go first. I'll take it. Yes, so good afternoon, everyone, and happy Black History Month. And it's just a pleasure to be on a panel with you all. And thank you, Vernon and Denise, for putting this together. But yes, my name is Davon Reeves. I am in the hotel space. So I am a co-owner of 3 hotels across 2 different states, as well as CEO and founder of a crowdfunding platform. So we're the first Black-owned and women-owned crowdfunding portal or platform for commercial real estate that's owned by a Black person and a woman. And I got my start off in the industry working as a front desk agent. And I wanted to see more people who look like me in the hotel ownership space or just in the ownership space. And so my journey has led me onto the panel with you wonderful gentlemen. So I'm excited to be here.
Good to have you. Carrington?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Vernon and Denise, thank you for the invitation. I'm Carrington Carter, general partner of East Chop Capital. A large book of our business is in the luxury vacation rental home space. So luxury Airbnbs. We are so $75 billion industry globally now. It'll be $130 billion by 2030. Our portfolio is about $50 million, and we're across 9 states: Martha's Vineyard, Hilton Head, Gatlinburg, Orlando, the Poconos, Virginia Beach, Port Aransas, Texas is coming 2025, and then Banner Oak, North Carolina is also coming 2025. So we are in the luxury vacation rental home space. Our properties are marketed under the customer-facing brand Getaway Society. And so that's our website, getawaysociety.com, or at Getaway Society on Instagram and Facebook. Excited for the conversation today.
Great. Truman?
Hello, everyone. My name is Truman Tolfrey. I'm the founder and managing member of Intersection Realty Group. Currently we have approximately 2 million square feet of both industrial and multifamily assets located in 3 different states. Right now we are in New York, Illinois, and Indiana. When I tell folks what we do, primarily we acquire and we like to add value to a growing portfolio of both Class B industrial properties and Class B workforce multifamily properties and liquid secondary markets across the U.S. How we accomplish this is really just by leveraging our deep network of industry relationships with both investment advisors, brokers, and owner operators, and we do that to try to source targeted acquisition opportunities. Most of them are actually off market, and that enables us to achieve attractive risk-adjusted returns for our investors. We are continuing to grow and very, very happy to be a part of this discussion. Carrington, I think I know your name, and if I'm not mistaken, I think we probably rented one of your rental houses in Martha's Vineyard last year.
Yep. I remember your last name as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Good to meet face to face.
Yeah, absolutely. Small world.
See, that's true partnership in action. I love that.
Yeah, that's right.
Nathaniel.
All right. Thank you guys for putting this on, Vernon, Denise. I'm Nathaniel Pettiford with Lineage Legacy Partners. We are a Texas-based real estate investment group, primarily focused on industrial development. As it stands right now, we are looking to look more into the industrial acquisition side of it as well. But right now we're kind of focused on, given the market, we're kind of focused on the development. We have about roughly about $100 million worth of projects that are in the pipeline right now. As you know, development it takes a while. So we just started our company about 1.5 years ago. So we're on the track to hit some big deals. But we're sort of just starting out at this particular point.
Excellent. And Tom, I know that we were having a couple technical difficulties. Can you hear us from Rhode Island? Okay, we may have lost Tom, but that's fine. So in the short term then, and Carrington, you started launching into some of the stats. I take it for granted that some folks here may understand and know all of the asset classes mentioned. Some of them may less so, and some of them may be looking to expand into those. Can you give us a sense for your respective spaces, how you chose to lean in there, what characteristics kind of drove you there, and what makes it an interesting source of activity for you right now?
Yeah, so initially we started out, understanding that real estate is a huge opportunity to build wealth over time. So that was kind of our guiding North Star. And we kind of separate our returns into 2 classes. So you have your hard ROI, your typical cash on cash returns, which provide dividends that we distribute to investors. You have your price appreciation. Thankfully, in the luxury vacation rental space, has been rapid price appreciation over time, and then in a lot of the resort markets that we specifically focus on, those often tend to appreciate even faster than typical housing markets. So those are some of the hard ROI metrics that we look at. And then our industry, we have the benefit of what we call soft ROI, and that's the ability to use the houses when they're not occupied or discounted rates during peak season and off season. Which allows you to use them with family and friends or leverage them with clients or investors. So I think that's kind of the unique aspect of our business, kind of that soft ROI component.
Does that mean I get an invitation at some point, hopefully, to one of these?
Absolutely.
No,
absolutely.
we'll offline it. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to host you.
Especially
Everyone.
in Martha's Vineyard. Okay.
Yeah.
Always down for the vineyard.
Would love to host everyone.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Was that it?
Yeah, that's it for me.
That's it. Oh, I guess I can.
Anyone else? Go ahead. Yeah.
I would say, I guess I could jump in as far as with so the hotel space is, I guess is sometimes it's under with the retail asset class. When it comes to commercial real estate, I know you was talking about some folks may not know the different classes. But with hotels, that's really the only commercial real estate asset class that I know. I'm starting to dabble a little bit into apartment complexes because my business partner, he comes from the apartment complex world. So I'm starting to, just learn a little bit more from him, but I never thought about commercial real estate. It wasn't talked about when I was growing up. It was just more so, everyone in my family owned a house. So I just thought, you just own a house and that's it. It wasn't until my circles changed, until I start being around people of different ethnicities, and I realized that the people who, or the communities that really had a lot of power, were the people who owned land and who owned commercial real estate. And so get into the space of, hotel ownership, navigating from front desk. I actually got into it from a non-paid internship. And so for the folks who are thinking about hotels or never even thought about adding hotels to your portfolio, some of the classes I would look at would be limited service. I know my fellow panelist, Carrington, was talking about the luxury homes. If you did want to get into luxury hotels, it's a lot more expensive, and ROIs for Carrington properties is a lot better than owning a luxury hotel because it's a lot more expensive than amenities. But I tried for my portfolio, when I advise people to get into the space, I tell them to focus on limited service, economy hotels, and extended stay. So brands such as Microtel, Motel 6, Home2 Suites, or Staybridge Suites, because those particular brands and hotel types, they offer not as many as expenses and amenities, so it's bringing more of a higher ROI to you.
That's great. And I have to second that same thought. We're currently working with a gentleman that some of the folks in this room may know, Damon Healy, who launched a business specifically to focus on extended stay hospitality. So we're seeing the same things in that space as well. It looks like we got Tom.
I'm on.
Tom
I figured
Clayton
it
in the
out.
building.
Yeah, man.
Last but not least, so why don't let's stop very quickly to get you the chance to introduce yourself to the group.
Tom Clayton, retired NFL veteran, current real estate developer. Been in business since 2013, since my NFL retirement. Focused on deep dive, heavy lift, fix and flips coming out the gate. Did quite a few of those, roughly about 100 or so. Shifted gears around 2018, got into multifamily, and slowly but surely, smaller projects, and then kind of scaled it up to more adaptive reuse, and then on to ground up construction, and here to where I stand today. So apologize, don't know how deep everyone went on their intro, but just let me know if you need any more detail.
No, that's actually perfect, and it's a perfect dovetail to what we were talking about, which is why everyone chose the segment of the market they picked. You went, and I've gone and seen your sites. I mean, you picked some heavy lifts on historic properties, and I looked at you and I said, I mean, this is crazy until you see the other side and you see the end product and how differentiated it is. So maybe you could just share with the audience what even made you start to pursue some of these historic adaptive reuse projects.
No, absolutely. So at that point in time, when I figured I did want to scale from the single family space, what I learned were there weren't very many apartment buildings at the size in which I was looking to acquire or rehab or develop. So we just figured it made more sense for us to look at opportunities to build out what we were looking for. And fortunately, unfortunately, in New England, there's just an abundance of underutilized or oversized buildings that just have not been taken care of. So there's quite a bit of distress up and down the coast, pretty much throughout the state. So we really looked at it more or less as an opportunity, right? Ultimately, our our motto is to bring forth housing that didn't exist before. And, we're able to do that twofold by, obviously redeveloping an old distressed property that obviously had no use and in some cases may not even been getting taxed. Here we are then, bringing, luxury housing where it didn't exist and offering up, a nice service to the community.
And one thing I would even add in that market, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, is that supply is so limited relative to demand that you're effectively alleviating the strain for a lot of the local municipalities that are trying to find ways to introduce more housing to those markets. Am I right?
No question. You nailed it. So, obviously Rhode Island being the smallest state in the country, it's actually second in population per square mile. So it's extremely populated. So the demand, heavily outstrips the supply by a long shot. Naturally, I know nationally, I think we're looking at like 4 to 7 million, depending upon what publication you look at in terms of a shortage. So just put that down into a micro size into Rhode Island and figure, that same dynamic, but just in one state. So, we get a heavy amount of influx as well. So I believe it was rated, I know, top 10 in inbound migration since COVID. So, people have figured out what we call the best kept secret of the Northeast. People have definitely started to figure it out. Price point wise, it's, fairly reasonable relative to surrounding markets, New York, and obviously Boston being on the upper tier in terms of price point. Rhode Island is not inexpensive by any means, would be considered, let's say, a top 15 in expense market, but relative to, there is financial refuge. So you do see a lot of people trickling in and setting up shop here. And, you got the beaches, great coastline, proximity to other cities. And it's very, very built up. Obviously you have to come here and figure for yourself, but there's quite a bit going on in the little state. And, we plan to continue to grow it out here.
Amazing. So on that very same point, I'm thinking of Truman, because Truman's focused in his description on some of the Class B and C industrial, but he's also working on some really exciting things in terms of conversion of office to multi. And so when I think what you just said, it makes me kind of wonder again, Truman, how did you even stumble into that? I mean, was that your creativity? And to speak about it a little bit in the context of the last year, everyone's saying we thought we were going to see this massive conversion of office to multi, and then folks realize how hard it is to actually do it. So what are your thoughts on that segment?
What I will say is that that's actually more of an anomaly for us. Really what we tend to focus on really is, existing cash flowing assets. So both, multifamily, Class B workforce housing, and also industrial. Notwithstanding, both my partner and I, spent a considerable amount of time in Chicago. He actually lives in Chicago right now. Prior to me, relocating or going back to grad school at Cornell and relocating to Rochester, which is where I am today, I spent, close to 10 years doing real estate finance in Chicago. And so, Chicago is a market that both he and I are familiar with. I also did a considerable amount of affordable housing development in Chicago. So from that standpoint, I'm very familiar and comfortable with, various, forms of both federal, state and municipal subsidies, including, 9% tax credits, 4% tax credits. And also prior to me starting Intersection Realty Group, I was a principal in one of the nation's largest multifamily owner and operators. And, because of my past experience doing affordable housing development, anytime we would do an adaptive reuse of an historic building that incorporated either historic tax credits, tax increment financing, and other various forms of municipal, state, and federal subsidies, I was the principal inside the firm who was tapped to lead those developments. So, we did a number of those under, that umbrella. And so from that standpoint, doing adaptive reuse of historic structures, utilizing historic tax credits, tax increment financing, et cetera, is something that I'm comfortable with. And so, that just felt like it was a natural extension for projects for us to move forward with. But what I would like to speak to today as well, and just bear with me another minute or so, is what really prompted me to get into the industrial space. So again, prior to me starting Intersection, I was a principal at a national multifamily owner operator. I co-led our national multifamily acquisition platform, where ultimately we grew to approximately 36,000 units. We had 140 properties. We're in 14 states. Market value was probably in excess of $4 billion. And, coming out of that, I found that for a long time, the multifamily space was really just the darling of the industry, both in independent owner operators, but also on the institutional side. And so what we found is that, over time, cap rates, not even only in gateway markets and, primary markets, but also in secondary markets and tertiary markets, really started to compress, and, for a number of different reasons. Number one, properties in these gateway cities and primary markets really became unreasonable. Cap rates got all the way down to, sub 4% in some respects. And so from that standpoint, supply demand fundamentals kick in, prices increase, yield erodes. And so from that standpoint, smart money starts to chase yield in the secondary and tertiary markets. And so pricing started to get out of whack in the secondary and tertiary markets. And so, when coming out of intersection, I was looking for an asset class that, checked a couple of different boxes. Number one, I was looking for an asset class that showed a dislocation between market value as represented by cap rates and also, capital markets, how I could finance them. I often talk about this relationship between cap rates and interest rates, financial leverage, positive and negative financial leverage. And so I was looking for an asset class where there was a dislocation between, the cap rates and how I could finance them. And that relationship in the multifamily side of the business really was not as attractive as it was in the industrial. I could still buy industrial properties in, 2019 at a 6%, 6.5%, 7% cap rate, but financing in place, that oftentimes was sub 4%. So from that standpoint, we have, a couple hundred basis points of positive financial leverage. And so those deals just made sense. They offer current yield, and we're able to offer our investors, attractive risk-adjusted returns, and current yield and current dividends. The second thing that I was looking for, as you all know, on the multifamily side, when you're buying an institutional asset, meaning, typically 200 units or more, it's operationally intense. You need a property manager, an assistant property manager, maintenance techs, leasing agents, et cetera. And that doesn't even mention kind of sort of the back office support that you need to be able to run a large and scalable multifamily platform. And so I was looking for asset classes that were much less operationally intense. And initially, I started to look at single tenant, absolute triple net leased industrial assets, but eventually evolved over to multi-tenanted industrial assets that tend to focus on warehouse distribution and light manufacturing. Again, not quite as less operationally intense as triple net lease industrial assets, absolute triple net lease industrial assets, but still less operationally intense than multifamily properties. So made our interest into that market and have been continuously building on our portfolio ever since.
Excellent. So as you're talking about the ability to go in and buy at a, in the 6 or 7 cap context, I'm looking at Nathaniel and I'm saying, well, why build industrial if you can just go buy it at a 7 cap and finance it as long as rates are cooperating with you? What makes that play more interesting for you?
Well, for us, and just to sort of step back and answer the previous question, and why industrial for me is my background. I started out in brokerage and capital markets. Back, and I'm not originally from Texas. I'm originally from the Raleigh-Durham area of North Carolina. So I started out. I had my own brokerage and capital markets firm there, and I did participate in every transaction with the exception of affordable housing and industrial. Because in my area, industrial was, if you didn't know someone, you didn't get into it, right? It was all big box, the type of product type that Truman is talking about. We called it flex. And so I did a couple of those deals, but I got the opportunity to sort of oversee a company that was just starting out to acquire these industrial small bay, shallow bay type of product type. And again, I hadn't done a lot in industrial, and say, hey, this might be my foray into a sector that I really don't know that much about. Fell into it, and I love it. And so I for all the reasons that Truman said, that was sort of, when he was talking, I was like, yeah, that's right. But why on the development side? For me, it was more so a lot of what I had done in the past was working with developers. And so for the last 8 years while I was working with that company, I was only doing acquisition. And I still longed for that development aspect of it. So when I started my own company, we looked primarily, what we're focused on right now is build to suit opportunities. And we've been pitching in front of industrial distribution companies and various other companies, and to pitch build to suit opportunities. And so that was the target for me of the why on the development side of it. But as it relates to one sector that I think is sort of forgotten about on the industrial side has been, and that makes them a little bit more better on the development side of things, is the metal building. Metal building projects are one of the areas that a lot of people forget about, because they're often thought of sort of what you see in a barn or in the backwoods of things, and so on and so forth. And however, if you start to look at it, a lot of buildings where people will think are tilt wall, they're actually metal buildings. They're just wrapped with brick. They're wrapped with different facades. So that sector is one that we're heavily identifying right now, because we can build in more of a core market at a less construction cost and still get the same rents that you would get with a tilt wall construction building. And it's helping our numbers and the numbers for our investors a lot more than it would trying to go out and build tilt wall buildings all over. So for us, it's just more about the opportunity that we see to fill a hole that a lot of people are overlooking.
So to that very same point, Nathaniel, how do you think about, so you obviously have a lower cost basis, which is good, but you're also taking up more lease up risk, right? Yeah. Because are you typically building to spec? Have you typically pre-leased the property in advance?
So we will do some pre-leasing. Typically, I would say the ones that we have right now, we're probably about 30% pre-lease before we start construction. And that does give a good basis to start from. But I would say on the average, by the time we finish the building, we're at least 50, a little bit more than 50% finished pre-leasing. And then so we can stage that comfortably, because our construction cost is, if we were to build it, we're basically half of what if we try to build a tilt wall building at that size. Like, for instance, you can't really build in this market, you cannot build a 50,000 square foot tilt wall building and make any money. Just the cost of doing that would just be, crazy. You have to hit scale. So we have a tilt wall project that we're negotiating to build right now. That's about 300,000 square feet. And that will be spec, but that's 300,000 square feet. So we had to do tilt wall. You're not going to do 300,000 square feet of a metal building. So we target our metal building construction and smaller. I mean, maybe 50,000 square feet, where we can find a piece of land that is in a core market